Both of your times are actually above our track record here at Phoenix Raceway. It's not official, obviously, since we were here practicing, but Ed, where do you think your team is finding the speed?
I think it's a continuation from last year. We had good cars here last year. I think JR was the only one faster.
Yeah,
It was
Mark
like
just got me. Thanks.
19.09 I think was it's fine. It's open test. It's a continuation from last year. We had good cars. We were fortunate enough to be part of the tire test team here last fall. So we in that regard, I think we had a little bit of a jump start on this tire, maybe relative to some of the other guys. So that's always nice to get that opportunity. We're thankful for Firestone to do that. So we'd been here on this tire. Obviously, JR hadn't, but the team's done a good job. We've gone through some changes, but the guys have kept their head down. We still have the same goals of competing for race wins, competing for the championship, Indy 500. And this is an important race. It's the first oval of the year. You want to come and kind of set the tone for the ovals here, just as St. Pete's important to kick off the season and set the tone for the road and street courses. So the guys have been working hard, and it doesn't really count, doesn't mean much today, but at the same time, it is fun to be up at the top and reward the guys for hard work this offseason.
Jared, this is quite a different oval than the oval that you've been running the past several years, but how has that rhythm come back to you, and also just your thoughts from that first session?
Yeah, I mean, I think being able to jump in at Iowa this last year was really helpful, I think, for me coming here just to, have a little bit of Phoenix is different, but it's, more similar to Iowa than it used to be, I think, in a lot of ways, and that just giving me a chance to get on the short oval aero package and kind of understand what the team's, setup kind of dynamic is, I guess. Definitely helped for me to just get up to speed more quickly, that I had that little bit of familiarity with it. And, like Ed sort of mentioned, like we rolled off the truck kind of, as we would say, just in the window, so it was a lot of just being able to, what we've been doing is sort of tailoring the cars to our individual needs, and those aren't that different. So both of us sort of then working together with our teams to benefit from each other along the way. So that's all, gone smoothly thus far, and we'll get some more race running in this afternoon, and hopefully be sort of off to the races for the rest coming back here in a month or two.
Questions, Bruce, and then Tony.
I know it's only testing, but if you look at those times in just a test session, imagine how quick you'd be if you hadn't not been a full-time driver the last 4 years. I mean, what is it? I mean, you've just jumped into this thing, and it's like you've never missed a beat.
I don't know. I mean, I think that everything is pretty. At the end of the day, like, it has a lot to do with how well the teams prep for coming here, and the amount of information that I sort of have at my disposal to get out and go do it. With a different tire comes a completely different feel sometimes to how the track works. So, I think that you could make a case, at least for coming in sort of fresh, that there are some advantages to that. Just that I don't have any sort of preconceived ideas about what's going to happen, but or how the car is going to feel necessarily. But yeah, I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said it didn't feel good going out and putting a couple laps down and doing it to where we felt, I mean, they were legit. So, it's not just, we're not just out there towing around or something, which felt good.
Tony?
Ed, how do you manage with such a limited tire sets for a test like this where you only have 6 sets over 2 days? I mean, when do you kind of figure when's a better time to run in that case?
Yeah, I mean, that's why, you see some people, everyone's on a little bit different program. I didn't run many laps today. JR had some electrical issues last night, so they had a little more tires to use this morning. So we kind of went through the same kind of qualifying prep program, which a lot of people seem to be doing today. And then he was able to get on with kind of some race running, general car stuff after that, where we were just waiting and saving the tires we have left for tonight. Obviously, we're happy to be quick right now, but the important thing is being good and having a really comfortable, relatively quick car for long runs tonight. So we wanted to make sure we had enough tires to give ourselves the opportunity to improve enough to leave here. The goal leaving these tests, you want to leave feeling like you've got a car capable of winning. That's when you feel like you've had a good test. So we've got a little work to do for that, but I think, like JR said, we were pretty close to being in the window of where we want to be when we got here, and now we're just trying to find little things here or there to make it better.
Any final questions, David? And then Mary.
When you're in the car, can you actually feel the difference between doing a 193 lap and, say, a 188? Or are you relying entirely on what you see on the dash reader?
I mean, you also kind of know your gear strategy and all that kind of stuff. So, just knowing where you're at in the RPM band and kind of feeling whether you've got that punch coming off the corners and, where you're ending. In some ways that's still a data thing, but, because you're watching it and you have lights and all that kind of stuff. But you can feel that type of stuff. If you're, as we would say, you can feel it when you're sort of on the pipe, like going through 3 and 4. If you had a good run through there and you're coming off the corner like with some gusto, like you definitely know that. So it tends to be the difference. The sort of macro differences here are like, how are you having to lift or not? But even within that little range, if you've got the balance you're looking for, you can definitely tell that you're cranking.
Yeah, I kind of feel like once you get under a 19.5, you can tell a difference from that than a 19.8. It's asking more of everything, and you can feel that through the tires and even your body. But, whether you're talking a 19.0 or a 19.3, you're hauling it either way.
Mary?
For JR, since you haven't been full-time in IndyCar the last couple of years, have you been doing a lot of sports car racing?
No, I have not.
He's just been hanging out with us.
Yeah, I've been hanging out with these guys, trying to get back to being full-time in IndyCar.
Okay, it worked.
No, I've sort of bounced around and I've been plenty busy, away from racing full-time in the IndyCar series. But, in all honesty, I've sort of chosen to, diversify what I've been trying to do. That's been equally just for my own sanity than, like walking around, going to racetracks, banging on people's doors can like drive you up the wall. So the sports car thing is honestly a little tough these days, just because of how we get ranked as IndyCar drivers. In the sort of Pro-Am category, like that doesn't really work in our favor. And since Grand Am and IMSA have combined, there's just kind of fewer of the prototype drives and the, GTLM, which is an amazing category. It's a lot of factory guys there. So it's a little bit of a tricky thing to work your way into, particularly if it's a part-time thing, I found. And I know walking around the paddock, there are some other guys that have had sort of a like experience with that. So, been keeping busy. Was fortunate, obviously, to be able to drive a little bit more than expected last year, testing for Joseph. But, in terms of, the kind of full-time driving, this will be, a fairly relative, like, uptick for me this year.
Well, I think ECR has hired Justin Taylor over from sports car racing from Audi. And, how does that translate for an engineer who's been in sports cars to come into an IndyCar situation and try and help you? I don't know if he's working with you, but... Yeah,
he is. So Justin's my primary engineer this year. It's been great working with him so far. Like, he and I, got along really well right from the beginning. I'm living out in Boulder. He's from Denver originally. Like, he's an American guy. So it's been cool working with him, just, kind of off the bat, I guess. And there are definitely some differences, but I think as Ed would, I'm sure, back me up on this, like, having guys come in that have had the level of success that he has at teams like that, despite the fact that the teams are very different, the kind of organizational structure of a huge factory team like the Audi LMP1 program and running at Le Mans and running in the WEC is quite different than a lot of the things we do here. He brings kind of a fresh perspective on things, which I think is something that's good and keeps all of us honest in terms of just the normal way that we go about thinking about what we're doing. And, there have been some things that have been an adjustment already, I'm sure, for him. Like, we were yesterday, like, nobody went out for the first half an hour or something of running, and he was just sitting there like, what in the hell are we all doing here? Like, this was a sports car practice session. Like, we'd be bashing into each other going out the pit lane, But it feels like he's having fun with it. Obviously, he's got a great team to work with to, get up to speed in situations like this, which frankly, like, this is our first time on track working together, his first time ever running a car on an oval. So, a little bit of a baptism of fire, but the support that we have from the group around us is definitely, I think, making that a relatively straightforward transition.